India is rising, but it's not rising alone. With the world watching, India is charging ahead, becoming a powerhouse in technology, manufacturing, defense, and diplomacy. It's setting global records in digital innovation, sending satellites into space, leading climate talks, and turning its youth population into a demographic goldmine. But here's the catch: India isn't the only one aiming for the top. In today's hyper-competitive global landscape, at least 12 countries are in a quiet, and sometimes not so quiet, race with India. Some are competing for foreign investment. Others are battling to dominate tech sectors, edge into space exploration, or take the lead in manufacturing. A few are even rivals in the diplomatic ring, shaping global narratives and building coalitions across continents. From China's industrial behemoth to Vietnam's agile factories, Israel's tech startups to Indonesia's resource dominance, these nations are not just growing, they're gunning for the same spotlight India wants. And the question is, can India outpace them all? In this video, we're breaking down 12 countries that are directly or indirectly competing with India, analyzing where the competition is fiercest, what India is doing to stay ahead, and what it all means for the future of global power. 1. China, the giant rival. China looms largest on India's competitive horizon. Economically, it's the world's factory floor, dominating manufacturing output, commanding trade corridors from the South China Sea to Europe, and leading in breakthroughs from 5G networks to AI research labs. China's sheer scale lets it undercut rivals on price, pump capital into global projects, and churn out consumer goods at a volume India can only dream of, for now. Yet India is no slouch. Its services sector gallops ahead in software exports, its youthful population underpins a booming domestic market, and its startups have begun to nip at China's heels in fintech, edtech, and healthtech. Geopolitically, the two powers clash on the rugged slopes of the line of actual control in Ladakh and jostle for influence across the Indo-Pacific. From joint naval exercises with the US to port deals in Sri Lanka and Djibouti, Beijing is building a string of pearls that India fears may encircle its shores. Conversely, New Delhi is deepening its Quad partnership, signing defense pacts, and expanding its footprint in Africa and Central Asia. Both nations vie for seats and sway in institutions like the UN Security Council and BRICS, but India's democratic credentials and soft power outreach, Bollywood, yoga, diaspora networks, remain a potent counterbalance to China's state-driven model. In infrastructure and cheap capital, China still holds the edge. In democratic legitimacy, demographic dividend, and cultural appeal, India fights back fiercely. 2. Vietnam, the manufacturing challenger. Vietnam has emerged as the poster child for the China Plus One strategy, multinational firms diversifying supply chains away from Beijing's tariff wars and COVID-era lockdowns. Samsung, for instance, produces nearly half its smartphones in Vietnamese factories. Intel, Nike, and hundreds of others have followed suit. With labor costs still lower than India's and streamlined export processes, Vietnam has muscled into the global electronics and textiles markets that New Delhi targets under its Make in India banner. India, however, isn't standing still. The production-linked incentive, PLI, schemes for mobile phones and other electronics aim to lure factories on Indian soil with tax breaks and subsidies. At the same time, leather, garment, and pharmaceutical units are scaling up in Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and beyond. India's challenge is to match Vietnam's ease of doing business and port efficiency without sacrificing its colossal market potential. The coming years will reveal whether India's reforms can outpace Vietnam's nimble factory floors. 3. Indonesia, the regional economic rival. As Southeast Asia's largest economy, Indonesia contests India for the same FDI pools, digital economy partnerships, and critical mineral supply chains. From palm oil to nickel ore essential for electric vehicle batteries, Indonesia wields resource clout that India lacks. Its archipelago of 270 million consumers also attracts startups in e-commerce, ride-hailing, and fintech, sectors where India's own unicorn scene is vying to expand. Both democracies in the G20, India and Indonesia court Western investors with promises of stability and market growth. Jakarta leans on its ASEAN leadership and shared Muslim-majority identity to amplify its soft power, while New Delhi touts its IT prowess and diaspora connections. The winner in this regional rivalry will be the one who can blend resource advantage with digital innovation, and both sides have designed for Bangladesh, the surprise competitor. Once marginalized in apparel manufacturing, Bangladesh now outpaces India in clothing exports, thanks to cutthroat labor costs and streamlined special economic zones. Global brands flock there for t-shirts and trousers, and Dhaka's GDP growth has occasionally edged past India's, fueled by steady textile orders and remittances from nearly 10 million overseas Bangladeshi workers. India counters with its PLI incentives for textiles, technology upgrades in its garment clusters, and initiatives to integrate small weavers into global value chains. Yet Bangladesh's razor-thin margins and laser focus on a single sector give it an agility that India's sprawling economy struggles to match. If Delhi wants to reclaim lost ground, it must combine scale with specialization, something its southern states are beginning to master. 5 United Arab Emirates, trade and financial hub. The UAE has transformed Dubai and Abu Dhabi into junctions where Asia, Europe, and Africa converge. With world-class ports, free trade zones, and a low-tax regime, it siphons off goods bound for Indian markets, re-exports them across the Middle East, and attracts international capital that might otherwise flow into Mumbai or Singapore. Startups and fintech firms are setting up shop in DIFC and Abu Dhabi global market, creating a quiet rivalry for innovation dollars. Yet India and the UAE are also partners. The India-UAE CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, has slashed tariffs on goods and services, making collaboration as lucrative as competition. New Delhi's challenge is balancing cooperation with protecting its own domestic industries, especially in petrochemicals, gems, and financial services, from an Emirati onslaught. 6 Philippines, the BPO contender. When corporations dial customer service hotlines, they often land in the Philippines, where English proficiency and a Western-friendly culture have cemented Manila's place in global BPO. But India's massive, multilingual talent pool and deep expertise in higher-value IT services, analytics, cloud computing, AI give it the upper hand in more complex projects. Both countries vie for contracts from North America and Europe, pitching cost savings and quality. Manila is doubling down on digital skills training and moving up the value chain into animation, gaming, and financial analytics. Meanwhile, Indian firms are automating routine tasks, retraining workforces, and forging partnerships with startups to stay ahead. The result, a healthy rivalry that ensures both markets keep rates competitive and standards high. 7 Brazil, BRICS and agri-tech rival. In the Global South's club of emerging powers, India and Brazil often sit at opposite ends of the table. Brazil's strength in agriculture, soy, sugarcane, ethanol, beef, and its vast mineral wealth make it a heavyweight exporter. Its fintech scene, led by neobanks like Nubank, parallels India's Paytm and PhonePe battle for digital wallets. Diplomatically, both steer BRICS summits, climate negotiations, and South-South cooperation. India's strength lies in IT services and pharmaceuticals, Brazil's in bioindustrial innovation and renewable energy. Each leverages its natural endowments, India's human capital, Brazil's land and water, to woo investors and set global standards in sustainability. 8 Pakistan, security and soft power rivalry. No country embodies rivalry with India more visceral than Pakistan. From the decades-long Kashmir dispute to competing bids for leadership of the Muslim world, the two nations lock horns in both the UN and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Pakistan's military alliances and strategic geography alongside China give it geopolitical heft that India counters through defense partnerships with the US, France, and Russia. On soft power, India's film industry, diaspora networks, and tech outreach dwarf Pakistan's cultural exports, but Islamabad's narrative of resistance and its lobbying in global Islamic forums keep New Delhi on its toes. The rivalry remains zero-sum in many arenas, but India's diversified economy and democratic clout give it a longer. 9. Turkey, global influence and defense tech. Turkey, straddling Europe and Asia, wields soft power through its popular TV dramas, diplomatic activism in Africa, and leadership in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Its defense tech exports, especially drones and missile systems, have carved out markets in Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan, raising alarms in New Delhi. India has responded by accelerating defense indigenization under Make in India and ramping up ties with Central Asian republics through its Act East policy. Both nations target the same friends and foes, be it in the Horn of Africa or the Caucasus, making Turkey one of India's more unconventional rivals. 10. South Korea, tech and innovation powerhouse. South Korea's triumph in semiconductors, Samsung, SK Hynix, electronics, LG, Samsung, and automobiles, Hyundai, Kia, sets it squarely against India's own manufacturing ambitions. Its R&D intensity and cultural exports, K-pop, K-dramas, have cultivated a global brand appeal that India's film industry now aspires to match. Yet India's advantage is its vast market, growing startup ecosystem, and cost-competitive labor. Partnerships abound. Samsung's large mobile plants in Noida, Korean investment in battery gigafactories, but so do competitive pressures. India must continue upgrading its innovation ecosystem if it hopes to outshine Seoul's polished tech machine. 11. Nigeria, the African counterpart. Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation and largest economy, mirrors India in its youthful demographic and entrepreneurial energy. Lagos is home to a booming fintech sector, Flutterwave, Paystack, that competes with Indian firms for global remittance and payment markets. In pharmaceuticals, too, Indian generics suppliers face rising Nigerian manufacturers keen to capture local and regional demand. Both democracies court Western investors with promises of growth, but Nigeria's oil wealth and position as ECOWAS leader give it clout in West Africa. India's outreach, through lines of credit, capacity-building programs, and diaspora engagement, has built goodwill. The next chapter will test whether Nigeria can leverage its energy resources and tech talent to outpace India in its own backyard. 12. Israel, tech and defense competitor. Israel's startup nation moniker isn't idle. Its breakthroughs in cybersecurity, agricultural tech, drip irrigation, water management, and drones keep global investors knocking. New Delhi is both a customer, importing Israeli defense systems and water tech, and an emerging competitor as its own deep tech startups gain traction. Israel's edge lies in R&D spend as a percentage of GDP and a culture that pushes high-risk, high-reward innovation. India counters with scale, incubators sprouting across Tier 2 cities, government-backed tech parks, and an army of software engineers. The rivalry here is less about volume and more about who can spin the most disruptive technologies to world markets. Comparative analysis, visual idea. A side-by-side table plotting each country's key competition area, India's strength, and the rival's top edge, offering viewers a quick, at-a-glance synthesis before diving into India's countermoves. What India is doing to stay ahead. To maintain its upward trajectory, India has rolled out marquee programs. Make in India streamlines manufacturing, Digital India expands connectivity to rural heartlands, Startup India reduces red tape for entrepreneurs. Financial hubs like Gift City aim to rival Dubai, while free trade pacts with the UAE, Australia, and the EU seek to lock in new export markets. On the technology front, UPI revolutionized digital payments, while ONDC promised to democratize e-commerce. India's space agency, ISRO, continues its winning streak, lunar missions, Mars orbiters, and soon, a human spaceflight. Diplomatically, India leads in the Quad, co-chairs the G20, and forges partnerships in SCO and BRICS+, weaving a web of alliances that undercuts rivals' influence. These initiatives leverage India's greatest assets, its democracy, youthful workforce, and global diaspora, to stay several steps ahead in the 21st century race. In this global contest, winning isn't about defeating every rival, but about setting the pace in critical arenas. India's unique combination of scale, democratic governance, digital prowess, and soft power gives it an edge many competitors envy. Yet challenges remain: infrastructure gaps, educational disparities, and bureaucratic inertia can slow progress. The clock is ticking, and India must execute on its bold reforms to not just compete but